Chapter 1. The Enigmatic Invitation. In the quiet sanctuary of his impeccably ordered apartment on Whitehaven Mansions in London. No, wait, that was not quite right. Hercule Poirot, the renowned Belgian detective, had long since retired to the countryside, or so he liked to tell himself. But retirement for a man of his intellect was a fickle thing, a mere interlude between the inexorable pull of mysteries that seemed to seek him out like moths to a flame. On this crisp autumn morning in 1935, Poirot sat in his cosy study in the village of King's Abbot, surrounded by the faint aroma of tisane and the polished gleam of his moustache, which he had just finished twirling to perfection with a pair of silver tongs. The room was a testament to order. Bookshelves lined with volumes on criminology and psychology, a desk devoid of clutter save for a single inkwell, and a stack of pristine notepaper, and a mantelpiece adorned with mementos from past triumphs, the dagger from the Orient Express affair, a faded photograph of his dear friend Hastings. Poirot sipped his herbal infusion, his little grey cells humming contentedly as he perused the morning's post. Bills, invitations to dull society events, and a letter from his banker. Nothing to stir the blood. But then his manicured fingers alighted upon an envelope that stood apart. It was of fine vellum, sealed with a blob of crimson wax bearing no discernible crest, only a faint impression that might have been a dome, or an arch, architectural perhaps. The address was written in a precise, almost mechanical hand. Monsieur Hercule Poirot, King's Abbot, England. No return address, no postage stamp. How had it arrived? Delivered by hand, no doubt, in the dead of night. Poirot's green eyes narrowed with intrigue as he slit it open with a pearl-handled letter opener. The contents were brief, typed on a single sheet of paper that smelled faintly of incense, as if it had been stored in some ancient crypt. Dear Monsieur Poirot, the echoes of the past whisper secrets that must not be heard by the unworthy. In the heart of the great dome, where words travel unseen, a shadow looms that threatens to engulf the light of truth. Come to London at once. The Whispering Gallery awaits your little grey cells. A life hangs in the balance, perhaps more than one. Seek the one who knows the stone's secrets. Discretion is paramount. Trust no one until the murmurs cease. Yours in urgency. A friend of the forgotten Poirot leaned back in his armchair, his moustache twitching like a seismograph registering an earthquake. Mon Dieu, he murmured, his Belgian accent thickening with excitement. What is this? A riddle wrapped in an enigma, non? The Whispering Gallery. Ah, but of course, it must refer to St. Paul's Cathedral, that magnificent edifice designed by Sir Christopher Wren, where whispers carry across the dome as if by magic. But what secret? What shadow? He rose and paced the room, his patent leather shoes clicking softly on the parquet floor. Retirement had been pleasant, gardening his prized vegetable marrows, enjoying the occasional visit from Hastings. But this was a siren call to his detective soul. Who was this friend of the forgotten? The phrasing suggested someone erudite, perhaps a historian or a cleric, versed in the lore of London's landmarks. And the hint of danger, a life in balance, stirred memories of past cases. The Blue Train, the Nile, where death lurked behind polite facades. Poirot examined the envelope again under a magnifying glass. No fingerprints, no watermark that he could discern without his laboratory equipment. The wax seal, upon closer inspection, bore a subtle outline, a stylized gallery with arches, confirming his suspicion. St. Paul's, indeed. He recalled visiting the cathedral once, years ago, marvelling at the acoustic phenomenon where a whisper uttered on one side of the dome could be heard clearly on the opposite, some 100 feet away. A place of divine architecture, but also, perhaps, of earthly intrigue. "George!" he called to his faithful valet, who appeared instantly, as if materialized from the ether. "Prepare my valise. We depart for London on the next train." "Monsieur?" George inquired, his face impassive, but his eyes betraying a spark of anticipation. He knew his master's moods well. "Oui, Georges, a mystery beckons, and Hercule Poirot does not ignore such summons. Hastings. Ah, I must telegraph my old friend, Captain Hastings. He is in London, no? He will meet us at the station." As Georges bustled away, Poirot sat once more, rereading the letter. The words "trust no one" echoed in his mind like those very whispers in the gallery. Was this a genuine plea for help, or a trap laid by some cunning adversary? Poirot had made enemies in his career, masterminds who resented his unerring deductions. Yet the thrill outweighed the caution. His little grey cells were already at work, piecing together invisible threads. By midday, Poirot was aboard the express train to London, the countryside blurring past the window like a watercolour in motion. He dozed lightly, dreaming of domes and shadows, of voices carried on unseen currents. Upon arrival at Paddington Station, the fog had descended, wrapping the city in a shroud that seemed fitting for secrets. There, amid the hustle of porters and passengers, stood Captain Arthur Hastings, his loyal companion, looking as earnest and slightly bewildered as ever. "Poirot, old chap, what brings you to town so suddenly? Your telegram was cryptic." "Ah, mon ami," Poirot replied, clapping him on the shoulder with uncharacteristic vigour. "It is not I who is cryptic, but the world around us. Come, we have much to discuss. But first to my apartment, and then to St. Paul's." As they hailed a taxi, the Belgian detective felt the familiar surge of purpose. The enigmatic invitation had set the stage. Now, the curtain would rise on what promised to be a drama of whispers, secrets, and perhaps murder. Chapter 2. Arrival in the foggy metropolis. The train's whistle pierced the dusk as it pulled into Paddington Station, its iron wheels screeching against the rails like a banshee's cry. Hercule Poirot, impeccably dressed in a tailored overcoat and his signature Homburg hat, stepped onto the platform, his polished shoes clicking with purpose. The fog, thick as a pea souper, swirled around him, muffling the clamour of porters and the clatter of luggage carts. London, in October 1935, wore its autumn shroud with an air of mystery, as if conspiring with the cryptic letter still tucked in Poirot's breast pocket. Captain Arthur Hastings, ever the loyal friend, stood waiting near a lamp-post, his tweed coat slightly rumpled, his face a mixture of excitement and mild confusion. "Poirot!" he called, waving a hand through the mist. "You're looking spry for a man who claims he's retired. What's this all about, eh?" Poirot's green eyes twinkled as he clasped Hastings' hand. "Mon ami, retirement is but a state of mind, and my mind, it is never at rest when a puzzle presents itself. Come, let us find a taxi. The fog, it is no friend to the impatient, but it suits our purpose tonight." They navigated the crowded station, Poirot's small, precise steps, a contrast to Hastings's longer strides. A black cab materialized from the haze, its driver a grizzled cockney who tipped his cap. "Where to, gents?" he rasped. "Whitehaven Mansions, if you please," Poirot replied, settling into the seat with the dignity of a monarch. As the taxi rumbled through London's veiled streets, Poirot recounted the mysterious letter to Hastings, omitting no detail, the vellum, the wax seal, the cryptic phrases about the whispering gallery, and a shadow threatening truth. Hastings whistled low. "Sounds like a proper intrigue, Poirot. St. Paul's, you say? That whispering gallery's a queer place. I went there as a lad, whispered something silly to a schoolmate across the dome, and it carried clear as day. But what's this about a life in danger?" "That, mon cher Hastings, is what we must discover," Poirot said, tapping his temple. "The letter speaks of secrets and stones. St. Paul's is a cathedral of history. Wren's masterpiece, built after the Great Fire. Its stones, they hold memories of wars, kings, and perhaps secrets more sinister." The taxi deposited them at Whitehaven Mansions, where Poirot's apartment awaited, as orderly as ever. Georges, his valet, had arrived ahead to prepare the flat, and a fire crackled in the hearth, casting warm light on the polished furniture. Over a pot of tisane and a plate of Hastings's favoured shortbread, Poirot spread the letter on the table, inviting his friend to examine it. "No postmark, no signature," Hastings noted, squinting. "This friend of the forgotten. Sounds like someone with a flair for drama. Could it be a hoax?" Poirot shook his head, his moustache quivering. "No, no. The effort to deliver this by hand, the quality of the paper, it speaks of purpose, not jest. But we must proceed with caution. The letter warns to trust no one." Hastings leaned back, frowning. "You think this is tied to something at the cathedral? Some scandal or crime?" "Précisément," Poirot said. "Tomorrow we visit St. Paul's, but tonight I must consult my notes on the cathedral's history. There are whispers, always whispers, in places of such grandeur, and where there are whispers, there are secrets." As Hastings nodded, a knock at the door startled them. Georges admitted a young messenger boy, his cap askew, holding a small parcel wrapped in brown paper. "For Mr. Poirot," he mumbled, then scampered off into the fog. Poirot unwrapped it carefully, revealing a single object. A tiny brass key, engraved with a faint dome-like symbol matching the wax seal. "Curiouser and curiouser," Hastings muttered, echoing Alice. Poirot held the key to the light, his eyes gleaming. "This, mon ami, is no mere trinket. It unlocks something, perhaps a door, perhaps a truth. But at St. Paul's, I suspect it will lead us to the heart of this mystery." They retired early, but sleep eluded Poirot. He sat by the window, watching the fog curl around the street lamps, his mind racing. The Whispering Gallery, with its acoustic marvels, was a perfect stage for secrets. Had someone overheard a dangerous truth? Was the key a literal or symbolic clue? And who was this friend of the forgotten? A priest, a historian, or someone with a darker motive? Morning broke with a weak sun struggling through the haze. Poirot and Hastings set out for St. Paul's, the cathedral's dome looming like a sentinel over the city. As they approached, the great structure seemed to watch them, its stone facade hiding centuries of stories. Poirot's heart quickened. The game, as his old rival might say, was afoot. Inside, the cathedral's vastness swallowed them. The nave stretched endlessly, its pillars rising to a ceiling painted with divine scenes. Tourists milled about, their voices a low hum, but Poirot's gaze fixed on the spiral staircase leading to the Whispering Gallery. "Up there, Hastings," he said softly. "That is where the whispers begin." As they ascended, a chill ran through Poirot, not from the cold stone, but from the certainty that they were stepping into a web spun by a master. The key weighed heavy in his pocket, and the letter's words echoed in his mind. Trust no one until the murmurs cease. Chapter 3. Whispers in the Dome. The spiral staircase of St. Paul's Cathedral wound upward like a coiled serpent, its stone steps worn smooth by centuries of pilgrims, tourists, and the occasional seeker of divine solace. Hercule Poirot, with Captain Hastings at his side, ascended methodically, his breath steady despite the 259 steps. Poirot prided himself on his fitness, though he would never admit to the occasional twinge in his knees. The air grew cooler and thinner as they climbed, carrying faint echoes of the organ music from below, a solemn hymn that seemed to vibrate through the very walls. Quite the hike, eh, Poirot? Hastings puffed, his face flushed. Reminds me of that time in the Alps. Though without the snow and the murderers, one hopes. Poirot smiled faintly, his gloved hand gripping the iron railing. Ah, mon ami, but murderers, they are everywhere, no? Even in houses of God. Remember, the cathedral has seen its share of intrigue, bombings in the war, secrets buried in its crypts, and now, perhaps, a new chapter. They emerged into the Whispering Gallery, a circular walkway hugging the inner base of the great dome, some 100 feet above the cathedral floor. The view was breathtaking. Below, the mosaic floor patterned like a giant compass rose. Above, the dome's frescoes depicting scenes from the life of St. Paul, painted by Sir James Thornhill, in shades of gold and azure. Tourists dotted the gallery, leaning against the balustrade, murmuring to companions across the expanse. The acoustic quirk was legendary. A whisper uttered against the wall would travel along the curve of the dome, audible only to those directly opposite, as if carried by invisible spirits. Poirot paused, his green eyes scanning the space. The gallery was not crowded this mid-morning hour. A family of Americans posed for photographs, a pair of elderly ladies chatted softly, and a solitary figure in a dark overcoat stood motionless, gazing downward. The Belgian detective felt a prickle at the back of his neck, the same instinct that had served him in countless cases. "Hastings," he said quietly, "position yourself across from me, there, by that pillar, and listen." Hastings nodded, intrigued, and made his way around the gallery, his footsteps echoing faintly. Poirot pressed his cheek to the cool stone wall, the faint scent of aged masonry filling his nostrils. He whispered, testing, "Can you hear me, mon ami?" From across the dome, Hastings's voice returned, clear and intimate, as if spoken directly into Poirot's ear. "Loud and clear, old chap. Jolly clever, this." Satisfied, Poirot straightened, his mind turning to the letter's words. The echoes of the past whisper secrets. He wandered slowly, observing the visitors. The man in the dark overcoat caught his eye again. He seemed out of place, his posture rigid, his face partially obscured by a fedora. Was he the friend of the forgotten? Or merely a coincidence? As Poirot neared a quiet section, a sudden chill swept through him. A voice, soft, disembodied, brushed his ear. "Poirot! The key unlocks the shadow! Beware the guardian of stones!" He froze, his heart pounding. The whisper was urgent, laced with fear, carrying across the dome from an unseen source. He spun, scanning the opposite side, but saw only shadows and the flicker of light through the windows. Hastings, noticing his friend's alarm, hurried over. "What is it? You look as if you've seen a ghost." "Not seen, mon ami. Heard," Poirot replied, his voice low. "A message, whispered just now. It mentioned the key, the very key I received last night. Someone knows we are here." Hastings's eyes widened. "By Jove, who? I didn't see anyone speaking." "Précisément. The gallery's magic. It conceals the speaker, but the voice, it was English, educated, with a tremor of desperation." Poirot pulled the brass key from his pocket, examining it anew. The dome engraving seemed more ominous now. The shadow! The guardian of stones! This is no prank, Hastings. We must find who sent this whisper. They circled the gallery again, Poirot interrogating subtly. The American family had heard nothing unusual. The elderly ladies recalled only the organ strains. But the man in the overcoat had vanished, slipping away like a wisp of fog. Poirot's little grey cell's word. Had he been the whisperer? Or an eavesdropper? Descending to the nave, Poirot sought out the verger, a stern-faced man named Mr. Elias Thorne, who oversaw the cathedral's daily operations. Thorne, tall and gaunt with wire-rimmed spectacles, greeted them in a hushed office off the transept. "Monsieur Poirot, the detective, what brings you to St. Paul's?" Poirot, ever the master of discretion, mentioned a personal interest in the Whispering Gallery's history. Thorne nodded knowingly. "Ah, yes, Wren's acoustic marvel, but it's not without its peculiarities. Lately, there have been reports, strange whispers, unsettling messages. Some say it's ghosts of the Blitz, others blame pranksters. And then there's Dr. Harlan Everett." "Everett?" Hastings interjected. "A historian," Thorne explained. "Specializes in cathedral architecture. He's been here often, researching Wren's hidden designs, secret compartments, coded inscriptions. Rumors say he's uncovered something controversial, but he's gone missing these past days." Poirot's eyes sharpened. "Missing? And this Everett, he knows the stone secrets now?" Thorne hesitated. "He claims the dome holds forgotten relics from the Great Fire era, perhaps even alchemical texts. But he's eccentric. Last seen in the gallery, muttering about shadows and guardians." The pieces clicked in Poirot's mind. The letter, the key, the whisper, all pointed to Everett. Was he the friend, or the one in danger? "We must speak with his associates," Poirot declared, "and search his last known whereabouts." As they left the cathedral, the dome's shadow lengthened across the plaza. The whisper echoed in Poirot's thoughts, a chilling harbinger. The mystery was unfolding, its threads weaving through history and deception. Little did he know, the first drop of blood was about to stain the sacred stones. Chapter 4. The Sudden Demise. The air in St. Paul's Cathedral hung heavy with the scent of wax and ancient stone, as Hercule Poirot and Captain Hastings descended from the Whispering Gallery. The echo of that eerie whisper still lingering in Poirot's ears. The vast nave below bustled with visitors, their murmurs blending into a soft roar. But Poirot's mind was elsewhere, piecing together the puzzle of the key, the cryptic letter, and Dr. Harlan Everett's disappearance. The verger's words about controversial discoveries had ignited his little grey cells, and he sensed the threads of a larger tapestry tightening. As they reached the cathedral floor, a commotion erupted near the base of the dome. A crowd had gathered, their voices rising in panic. A woman's scream cut through the din, sharp and piercing. "He's dead! Oh, heavens, he's dead!" Poirot's eyes narrowed, and he quickened his pace, Hastings at his heels. They pushed through the throng to find a ghastly scene. A man lay crumpled on the mosaic floor, his limbs splayed unnaturally, a pool of blood seeping from beneath his head. His eyes stared blankly at the dome above, as if fixed on some final, unseen whisper. "Good Lord, Poirot!" Hastings gasped, his face paling. "He must have fallen from the gallery!" Poirot knelt beside the body, his gloved hands careful not to disturb the scene. The man was middle-aged, dressed in a fine tweed suit, his face handsome but now marred by the violence of his fall. A small crowd hovered, tourists, clergy, and a sobbing woman in a navy coat clutching a handkerchief. Poirot's gaze flicked upward to the whispering gallery, some 100 feet above. The balustrade was low, but sturdy. An accident seemed unlikely, given the gallery's design. "Monsieur," Poirot called softly to a nearby verger, who was wringing his hands, "who is this man, and has anyone summoned the police?" The verger, a younger man than Thorne with a nervous stutter, nodded. It's Dr. Harlan Everett, sir, the historian. I saw him in the gallery not an hour ago, pacing and muttering. The police are on their way." Poirot's moustache twitched. Everett, the very man Thorne had mentioned, the one obsessed with Wren's secrets. The coincidence was too stark. He stood scanning the crowd for the man in the dark overcoat from the gallery, but he was nowhere to be seen. "Hastings," Poirot murmured, "observe the faces here. Grief, shock, curiosity, but look for fear, or worse, satisfaction." Hastings nodded, his eyes darting over the onlookers. The sobbing woman caught his attention. She was in her 30s, with sharp features and auburn hair pinned beneath a cloche hat. "Who's she?" he whispered. Poirot approached her gently. "Madame, I am Hercule Poirot. May I know your connection to Dr. Everett?" She dabbed her eyes, her voice trembling. "I'm Clara Henshaw, his research assistant. We were working together on his project. He was so excited this morning, said he'd found something in the gallery, a clue to Wren's hidden designs, and now—" Her voice broke, and she buried her face in her handkerchief. Poirot's gaze softened, but his mind was razor-sharp. "A clue, you say? Did he share its nature?" Clara shook her head. "He was secretive. Said it was dangerous knowledge, tied to the cathedral's past. He'd been receiving threats, anonymous notes like the one you got." Poirot's hand instinctively touched the pocket where the brass key rested. Threats. And did he mention a guardian of stones? Her eyes widened. Yes! He said the guardian was watching, that the secret mustn't fall into the wrong hands. I thought he was being dramatic, but now— She gestured helplessly at Everett's body. The police arrived, led by Inspector Japp, a familiar face whose gruff demeanour belied a grudging respect for Poirot. "Well, well, Poirot," Japp said, tipping his hat. "Can't stay retired, can you? Looks like a nasty accident, but I suppose you'll tell me it's murder." Poirot's lips curved slightly. "An accident, Inspector, perhaps. But the Whispering Gallery does not betray its visitors so easily. Observe the body. No signs of a struggle, yet the angle of the fall, it suggests a push, no? And Dr. Everett's work, it was not without enemies." Japp sighed, ordering his men to cordon off the area. Poirot examined the scene further, noting a small scrap of paper clutched in Everett's hand. With Japp's permission, he pried it free. A torn page, scribbled with a single word in Everett's handwriting, cipher. Poirot slipped it into an evidence envelope, his mind racing. A cipher, tied to the gallery's whispers and the key. The plot thickened. As the crowd was ushered away, Poirot lingered, his eyes tracing the dome's curve. Clara's words echoed, dangerous knowledge. Had Everett been silenced for what he'd uncovered? And was the whisperer in the gallery the killer, or a witness now in peril? "Hastings," Poirot said, his voice low. "We must return to the gallery tonight, after hours. The stones, they have more to tell us, and this key, it unlocks more than a door, I think." As they left the cathedral, the fog outside seemed thicker, as if conspiring to hide the truth. Everett's death was no accident. Poirot was certain. The Whispering Gallery had claimed its first victim, but its secrets were far from silent. Chapter 5. Gathering the Suspects. The sombre air of St. Paul's Cathedral lingered as Hercule Poirot and Captain Hastings followed Inspector Japp to a small vestry room off the nave, where the police had set up a temporary headquarters. The death of Dr. Harlan Everett had transformed the sacred space into a stage for investigation, the echoes of his fall still reverberating in the minds of those present. Poirot's polished shoes clicked softly on the stone floor, his mind alight with the scrap of paper bearing the word cipher, and the mysterious brass key tucked in his pocket. The Whispering Gallery's secrets were unravelling, but the cast of this drama needed to be assembled. Inspector Japp, his face etched with the weariness of a man accustomed to London's darker corners, gestured to a group of individuals gathered in the vestry. "These are the folks who were in or near the gallery when Everett took his tumble," he said. "I've got their statements, but I reckon you'll want a word, Poirot." "Indeed, Inspector," Poirot replied, his green eyes scanning the room. "The truth, it hides in the details, the glances, the hesitations, the lies that betray themselves in the smallest gestures." The suspects were a varied lot, each a potential thread in the tapestry of Everett's demise. Clara Henshaw, the research assistant, sat pale and trembling, her auburn hair dishevelled beneath her hat. Beside her was Elias Thorne, the gaunt verger, his spectacles glinting as he clasped a prayer book tightly. A stout man in his 50s, introduced as Sir Reginald Blake, a cathedral benefactor, puffed indignantly on a pipe, his tweed jacket reeking of tobacco. A young American tourist, Miss Emily Carter, fidgeted with her camera, her eyes darting nervously. Finally, a wiry man in a cleric's collar, Reverend Thomas Leigh, stood with a serene expression that seemed almost too composed. Poirot began, his voice smooth as velvet. "Mesdames et messieurs, I am Hercule Poirot, and I assist Inspector Japp in uncovering the truth behind Dr. Everett's tragic end. You were all present when he fell. I ask for your candour. What did you see? What did you hear?" Clara spoke first, her voice unsteady. "I was with Harlan, Dr. Everett, in the gallery. He was excited, scribbling notes about a discovery. He said the dome held a secret, something about Wren's designs. Then he stepped away to test a whisper and I heard a cry, and he was gone." Her eyes filled with tears, but Poirot noted a flicker of something, guilt perhaps. Sir Reginald snorted, his pipe smoke curling upward. "Nonsense. The man was reckless, leaning too far over the railing. I was below, in the nave, discussing repairs with Thorne. Saw him hit the floor. Ghastly business, but an accident, surely." Thorne adjusted his spectacles. "I was with Sir Reginald, yes, but I'd seen Dr. Everett earlier, pacing the gallery. He seemed agitated, muttering about a guardian and a key. I thought it was his usual eccentricity." Poirot's moustache twitched. "A key, you say? Interesting." He turned to Miss Carter, whose hands trembled as she clutched her camera. "Mademoiselle, you were photographing the gallery, non? Did you capture anything unusual?" Emily blushed, stammering. I was taking pictures of the dome's frescoes. I didn't see Dr. Everett fall, but I heard a shout. My camera. It might have caught something, but I haven't developed the film yet." Reverend Lee's calm voice cut in. "I was in the gallery, praying silently. I heard no shout, only the usual murmurs of tourists. Dr. Everett's work was controversial. Some say he was meddling with things best left buried. Perhaps divine judgment." He trailed off, his eyes meeting Poirot's with an unsettling steadiness. Hastings, standing by the door, whispered to Poirot, "That cleric's too serene for my liking. And Clara, she's hiding something, I'd wager." Poirot nodded subtly, then addressed the group. Each of you, I observe, has a connection to this place or to Dr. Everett. Madam Henshaw, you worked closely with him. Sir Reginald, you fund the cathedral's upkeep. Perhaps you knew of his research. Monsieur Thorne, you guard these stones and their secrets. Mademoiselle Carter, your photographs may hold a clue. And Reverend Lee, your prayers, they do not blind you to the whispers of men, no? The room tensed, each suspect shifting under Poirot's scrutiny. Japp cleared his throat. Right then. We'll need your addresses and statements. Nobody leaves London until we sort this out. As the group dispersed, Poirot pulled Clara aside. Madame, you mentioned threats to Dr. Everett. Have you seen a key like this? He produced the brass key, watching her reaction. Her eyes widened, then darted away. No, I mean, he had many artifacts, but he was obsessed with a key. Said it unlocked a hidden chamber in the cathedral. He wouldn't tell me more. Poirot's gaze lingered, sensing her evasion. Back in the nave, he and Hastings reviewed the suspects. Clara knows more than she admits, Poirot mused. Sir Reginald's bluster hides a motive, perhaps financial? Thorne's mention of the key suggests he's not merely a bystander. The American girl's camera may reveal a truth she doesn't yet know. And the Reverend, his calm, it is a mask. Hastings frowned. But a murder, Poirot. The gallery's railing is low, but a push would take nerve with so many witnesses. Précisément, Poirot said, his eyes gleaming. The Whispering Gallery is a place of secrets, Hastings. Someone used its magic to conceal their act. Tonight, we return, to listen, to observe, and to find the cipher Everett died for. As they stepped into the foggy evening, the cathedral's dome loomed behind them, a silent witness to a crime that whispered of deeper truths. Chapter 6. Echoes of the Past. The fog had thickened around St. Paul's Cathedral, as Hercule Poirot and Captain Hastings stepped into the chilly London evening, the dome's silhouette fading into the mist like a ghost. Inside Poirot's mind, the pieces of Dr. Harlan Everett's death churned. The whispered warning in the gallery, the brass key, the scribbled word cipher, and the uneasy alibis of the suspects. The cathedral, with its centuries of history, seemed to hold its breath, guarding secrets that Everett had died trying to unearth. Poirot's little grey cells buzzed with purpose. He needed to understand the historian's work to unravel the motive, here behind his murder. Back at Whitehaven Mansions, Poirot spread his notes across the dining table, the firelight casting shadows on the walls. Hastings, nursing a brandy, watched as Poirot pinned a photograph of St. Paul's dome beside the mysterious letter and the brass key. Everett was no ordinary scholar, Poirot began, his Belgian accent sharp with focus. The verger, Thorne, spoke of his obsession with Wren's designs, hidden compartments, coded inscriptions. We must learn what he sought, Hastings, for it is the key to his death. Hastings nodded, though his brow furrowed. But where do we start? Everett's gone, and Clara Henshaw's tight-lipped. Do we trust her claim about threats and this guardian of stones? Poirot's moustache twitched. Trust, mon ami, is a luxury we cannot afford, but knowledge that we can pursue. Tomorrow, we visit the British Museum's archives. Everett's research must have left a trail. Morning brought a drizzle that slicked the cobblestones as Poirot and Hastings arrived at the museum, its grand columns looming through the rain. A librarian, Miss Agatha Poole, a prim woman with steel-grey hair, greeted them in the reading room. Dr. Everett was a frequent visitor, she confirmed, leading them to a desk piled with his requested materials. He studied Wren's architectural plans, particularly St. Paul's, but also wartime records from the 17th century. Poirot's eyes gleamed as he sifted through the documents. Faded blueprints of the cathedral, annotated in Everett's precise hand, and letters referencing the Great Fire of 1666. One note caught his attention, a photocopy of a letter from Wren himself, dated 1675, mentioning a sacred trust hidden within the dome to preserve the light of knowledge from those who would misuse it. Everett had underlined the phrase and scribbled, "The Guardian's Vault." "This," Poirot murmured, "is no mere architectural curiosity. Wren hid something, perhaps a relic, perhaps a document, and Everett believed it was still there, protected by this guardian." Hastings leaned over, puzzled. But what could it be? Gold, manuscripts, and why kill for it? Poirot tapped the key in his pocket. "That we shall discover. But consider, mon ami, after the Great Fire, London was reborn under Wren's vision. What if he embedded a secret in the cathedral? Something tied to the turmoil of that era? Civil war, plague, fire, these breed secrets worth killing for." Miss Poole returned with a journal Everett had last consulted, its pages brittle with age. It belonged to a mason who worked on St. Paul's, describing a sealed chamber within the dome, accessible only by a key crafted for the Keeper of the Stones. Everett's marginalia read, "Cipher points to gallery's base. Coordinates." Poirot's pulse quickened. The word cipher again, linking back to the scrap in Everett's hand. They left, the museum with copies of the key documents, Poirot's mind racing. Back at the cathedral, he sought out Clara Henshaw, who was lingering near the nave, her face drawn. "Madame," Poirot said gently, "you knew of Dr. Everett's research into Wren's secrets. Tell me of this vault, this cipher. Your silence protects no one now." Clara hesitated, then spoke in a hushed tone. "Harlan found a pattern in the gallery's acoustics, a sequence of whispers that, when aligned with the dome's geometry, revealed coordinates. He thought they pointed to a hidden panel. He was terrified someone else knew, someone who'd stop at nothing to claim it." "And this someone?" Poirot pressed, watching her eyes. "I don't know," she whispered, "but he mentioned Sir Reginald Blake, the benefactor. Harlan said Blake was too interested in his findings, asking pointed questions about funding for special projects." Poirot filed this away, his suspicions of Blake's bluster deepening. As he and Hastings returned to the Whispering Gallery, now closed to tourists for the police investigation, Poirot tested the acoustics himself, whispering phrases and noting how the sound travelled. He paused at the gallery's base, where a faint seam in the stone caught his eye, almost invisible, but suggestive of a concealed panel. The key, he suspected, might fit here, but he dared not try it yet, not with unseen eyes watching. "Hastings," he said, his voice low, "the past is speaking to us through these stones. Everett's death was no accident. He was pushed to silence his discovery. But the killer miscalculated. The cipher lives, and so does the key." As they descended, the cathedral's organ began a mournful tune, its notes echoing like the ghosts of Wren's era. Poirot felt the weight of history pressing down, the echoes of the past urging him to uncover what lay hidden before another life was claimed. Chapter 7. The Hidden Cipher. The dim light of a single oil lamp cast flickering shadows across Hercule Poirot's dining table at Whitehaven Mansions, where he and Captain Hastings sat late into the evening. The air was thick with the scent of Poirot's tisane, and the faint mustiness of the documents they'd brought from the British Museum. Dr. Harlan Everett's death in St. Paul's Cathedral. the whispered warning in the whispering gallery. And the brass key with its dome engraving weighed heavily on Poirot's mind. The word cipher, scribbled on the scrap found in Everett's hand, was the thread he now tugged, certain it would unravel the mystery. Poirot spread out Everett's notes, the Mason's journal, and Wren's cryptic letter from 1675. "Mon ami," he said to Hastings, his voice precise as a metronome, Everett believed he had found a cipher, a code hidden in the geometry of the whispering gallery. This cipher, it points to a secret chamber. We must decode it before the killer claims what Everett died to. Protect Hastings, rubbing his eyes after hours of poring over faded texts, frowned. A cipher? Sounds like something out of a spy novel. How do we even start? Poirot's moustache curled with a faint smile. By using the little grey cells, Hastings. Everett's notes mention coordinates derived from the gallery's acoustics. The dome, it is not just architecture. It is a puzzle, designed by Wren to guard a secret. He pointed to a sketch in Everett's notes. A cross-section of the dome, with lines radiating from specific points along the gallery's curve, each marked with numbers. Degrees, perhaps, or measurements. Beside it, Everett had written, "Whispers a line at 32, 64, 128. Resonance reveals the path." Poirot recalled Clara Henshaw's words about Everett testing whispers. The gallery's acoustics, he mused, they are not random. Wren engineered them to carry sound precisely. Perhaps the cipher is in the sound itself. Hastings looked sceptical. "You mean whispering numbers unlocks a door? Seems far-fetched, even for Wren." "Not a door, perhaps," Poirot replied, "but a mechanism. Let us hypothesize. The gallery is circular, 112 feet in diameter. If we whisper at specific points, the sound converges, revealing something. Everett found coordinates. Let us test his theory." They returned to St. Paul's the next morning, granted access by Inspector Japp, who grumbled but trusted Poirot's instincts. The cathedral was eerily quiet, its nave empty, save for a few vergers sweeping the floors. The whispering gallery, cordoned off since Everett's fall, felt like a stage awaiting its next act. Poirot carried a small notebook, transcribing Everett's numbers. 32, 64, 128. He positioned Hastings at one end of the gallery, instructing him to listen, while he moved to precise points along the curve, whispering each number in sequence. The effect was uncanny. Each whisper, spoken softly against the stone, reached Hastings with startling clarity, as if Poirot stood beside him. But at the third point, 128 degrees from the starting mark, a faint click echoed, not from the gallery but from below, near the base of the dome. Poirot's eyes gleamed. "Hastings, did you hear that?" Hastings hurried over, nodding. "Like a latch or spring. Where did it come from?" They descended to the nave, Poirot's gaze fixed on the seam he'd noticed the previous day, a barely perceptible line in the stonework at the gallery's base. He produced the brass key, its dome engraving glinting in the dim light. With a glance to ensure they were unobserved, he pressed the key into the seam. It fit perfectly, turning with a soft grind. A panel, no larger than a book, slid open, revealing a small compartment carved into the stone. Inside lay a folded parchment, yellowed with age, and a tiny brass plaque inscribed with a grid of letters and numbers. A cipher wheel. Poirot's pulse quickened as he unfolded the parchment. It was a letter, written in Wren's own hand, dated 1685. "To the Keeper of the Stones, the vault is sealed, its contents a burden for the wise." The cipher guards the path, but beware, the guardian watches always. By Jove, Hastings whispered. Wren really did hide something. But what's in the vault? Poirot examined the cipher wheel. Its letters arranged in a seemingly random pattern. This, mon ami, is the key to the vault's location. Everett deciphered part of it. Enough to die for. We must decode the rest. As they left the cathedral, Poirot concealed the parchment and wheel in his coat, aware of eyes that might be watching. Clara's mention of Sir Reginald Blake's interest in Everett's work gnawed at him. Was Blake the guardian Wren warned of, or another player in this deadly game? The cipher wheel was a breakthrough, but it also marked them as targets. The echoes of the past were growing louder, and Poirot knew the next whisper might be a warning or a threat. Chapter 8. Shadows among the pillars. The great dome of St. Paul's loomed against the starless London sky, its silhouette softened by the mist that clung to the city like a shroud. Hercule Poirot adjusted his scarf, his gloved hands steady despite the chill that seeped through his overcoat. Beside him, Captain Hastings shivered, his breath puffing in the night air as they stood in the shadows of the cathedral's west entrance. The massive doors were locked, but Poirot had persuaded the verger, Mr. Grayson, to grant them access after hours, citing matters of utmost urgency. The old man had hesitated, but relented under Poirot's unrelenting charm, and a discreetly offered banknote. "Poirot, are you certain about this?" Hastings whispered, his voice barely audible, over the distant hum of London's nocturnal pulse. "Sneaking about a cathedral at midnight feels, well, dashed irregular." Poirot's moustache twitched in the faint glow of a street lamp. "Mon ami, the cathedral at night is no mere building. It is a stage where secrets play their parts in shadow. Tonight, we observe the actors who believe themselves unseen." Their plan was simple yet bold. A stakeout within the cathedral to catch a suspect in the act. Poirot's discovery of the hidden cipher in the Whispering Gallery, a sequence of numbers etched into a pew, had pointed to a clandestine meeting. The cipher, decoded with his meticulous logic, suggested a rendezvous at midnight, near the cathedral's nave. Poirot suspected one of the suspects, perhaps the evasive Mrs. Langley, the victim's widow, or the nervous young curate, Mr. Ellis, was planning to retrieve or conceal evidence. The verger's key turned with a heavy clunk, and the door creaked open. Poirot and Hastings slipped inside, their footsteps muffled on the stone floor. The vast interior was a cavern of darkness, broken only by slivers of moonlight filtering through the stained glass windows. The air smelled of wax and ancient stone, and the silence was so profound it seemed to hum. "Stay close, Hastings," Poirot murmured, his eyes scanning the gloom. They moved toward the nave, keeping to the shadows of the towering pillars. Poirot's small frame was surprisingly agile, his steps deliberate as he navigated the aisles. Hastings, less accustomed to such stealth, nearly tripped over a prayer cushion, earning a sharp glance from his friend. They positioned themselves behind a pillar near the choir stalls, where the cipher had indicated activity. Poirot's eyes gleamed with anticipation, his mind no doubt arranging the puzzle pieces of the case. The victim, Sir Reginald Langley, had fallen from the Whispering Gallery 4 days prior, his death ruled an accident by the police but deemed murder by Poirot. The whispered message Poirot had heard, "The truth lies below," had set him on a trail of wartime secrets, hidden artifacts, and a coded note that suggested Sir Reginald's death was tied to a betrayal from decades past. A faint scuff echoed through the nave. Hastings stiffened, but Poirot's hand steadied him. From the direction of the south transept, a figure emerged, a silhouette cloaked in a long coat. The figure moved cautiously, pausing to glance around before approaching the choir stalls. Poirot's lips curved slightly. "Observe, Hastings," he whispered. "The guilty always return to the scene of their deceit." The figure knelt, fumbling with something beneath a pew. A soft click followed, and Poirot's eyes narrowed. He stepped forward, his voice cutting through the silence like a blade. "Bonsoir, Madame Langley. Or should I say, bonsoir to the one who seeks to bury the past?" The figure gasped, spinning around. It was indeed Mrs. Langley, her pale face illuminated by a shaft of moonlight. Her hands clutched a small metal box, its surface glinting faintly. "Monsieur Poirot," she stammered, I was only retrieving evidence, perhaps." Poirot's tone was gentle but unyielding. "Or ensuring that Sir Reginald's secrets remain hidden? That box, madame, what does it contain?" Mrs. Langley's composure crumbled. "It's nothing, just personal effects." Her voice trembled, betraying her. Hastings stepped forward, emboldened. "Come now, Mrs. Langley, you're caught red-handed. Best to come clean." Before she could respond, another sound, a sharp creak, came from the north aisle. Poirot's head snapped toward it. "We are not alone," he muttered. In an instant, he was moving, his small frame darting toward the sound with surprising speed. Hastings followed, leaving Mrs. Langley frozen with her box. In the north aisle, they glimpsed another figure, a man tall and lanky, slipping toward the crypt stairs. "Mr. Ellis," Poirot called, his voice echoing. The curate froze, then bolted, his footsteps clattering down the stone steps. Poirot pursued, undeterred by the darkness, while Hastings struggled to keep pace. The chase led into the crypt's labyrinthine passages, where the air grew colder and the shadows deeper. Poirot's voice rang out again. "Mr. Ellis, you cannot outrun the truth. The pillars of this cathedral have seen your betrayal." The pursuit ended abruptly when Ellis tripped, sprawling across the stone floor. Poirot stood over him, unruffled. "The box, the cipher, the whispers, all point to a conspiracy, no? You and Mrs. Langley, what have you hidden?" Ellis, panting, shook his head. "It's not what you think. She forced me. The box contains letters, proof of Sir Reginald's treason during the war. We were protecting his legacy." Poirot's eyes gleamed. "Or protecting yourselves. The truth, it lies below, as the whisper said, and I, Hercule Poirot, will uncover it." As Hastings helped Ellis to his feet, Poirot's mind was already racing ahead, piecing together the night's revelations. The box, the letters, the alliances, all were threads in a tapestry of deception, and the little Belgian detective was determined to unravel it. Chapter 9. The Forgotten Diary. The crypt of St. Paul's Cathedral was a maze of shadows, its stone walls damp with the weight of centuries. Hercule Poirot stood in the flickering light of a single lantern, his sharp eyes fixed on the metal box Mrs. Langley had clutched so desperately. Captain Hastings, still catching his breath from the chase, held the trembling curate, Mr. Ellis, by the arm. The air was thick with tension, the silence broken only by the faint drip of water somewhere in the darkness. "Madame Langley," Poirot said, his voice calm but piercing, "you will open the box, s'il vous plaît. The time for secrets is past." Mrs. Langley's hands shook as she fumbled with the latch. Her face, pale and drawn, betrayed a mix of fear and resignation. The box clicked open, revealing a bundle of yellowed letters tied with a faded ribbon, and, beneath them, a small leather-bound diary. Poirot's moustache twitched as he reached for the diary. his gloved fingers handling it with the care one might reserve for a priceless artifact. "Letters of treason, Mr. Ellis claims," Poirot mused, glancing at the curate. "But this diary, I suspect, holds a story far more personal." "Non?" He opened it, revealing pages filled with tight, elegant handwriting. The name on the inside cover read, "Eleanor Langley, Mrs. Langley's mother-in-law, Sir Reginald's late mother." Hastings leaned closer, peering over Poirot's shoulder. "Good heavens, Poirot! A diary! Whose is it?" Poirot's eyes gleamed. "It is the voice of the past, mon ami. And the past, it always whispers truths the present seeks to bury." He turned to Mrs. Langley, whose eyes darted away. "You knew of this diary, madame. Why hide it? What scandal does it conceal?" Mrs. Langley's lips trembled. "It's private, family matters, nothing to do with Reginald's death." Poirot raised an eyebrow. "And yet you risk the shadows of this crypt to retrieve it." "No, madame. I think it is very much to do with the murder." He began flipping through the diary, his quick mind scanning the entries. The pages spoke of Eleanor's life in the 1940s, during the war, when St. Paul's stood defiant amid the Blitz. One entry caught his eye, dated March 1943. "Reginald has changed. The war has made him reckless. He speaks of deals with unsavory men, of secrets hidden in the cathedral. I fear he has betrayed more than his country. His heart strays too. If Clara discovers his affair, it will destroy her." Poirot's gaze sharpened. "Clara, that would be Mrs. Langley's mother. The affair, perhaps the root of a vendetta." He turned to Mrs. Langley. "Your husband's death. It is tied to this betrayal, is it not?" Mrs. Langley's voice cracked. "You don't understand. Those letters, they prove Reginald's father was selling information to the enemy. If they came to light, our family would be ruined." "And the diary?" Poirot pressed. "It reveals a personal betrayal, an affair that broke a family. Did someone seek revenge for this, even after all these years?" Mr. Ellis, still pale, interjected. "I only helped her retrieve it. She said it was to protect the family name. I didn't know about any murder." Poirot's lips curved slightly. "Yet you fled, Mr. Ellis. The innocent do not run." He returned to the diary, reading aloud another entry. "The Whispering Gallery holds more than echoes. Reginald hid something there, a secret he swears will protect us. But I fear it will be our undoing." Hastings frowned. "Hidden in the gallery. Poirot, could this be tied to the cipher we found?" "Précisément," Poirot said. "The cipher led us to this meeting, and this diary points to a secret hidden in the gallery itself. But it is not an artifact or treasure. It is knowledge. Knowledge of betrayal, both political and personal." He closed the diary with a snap. "Mrs. Langley, who else knew of this diary?" She hesitated, then whispered, "Only my brother-in-law Charles. He hated Reginald for what his father did. He said the family's honour was stained." Poirot's eyes narrowed. "Charles Langley, the man who was conveniently absent during the murder. Where is he now?" Mrs. Langley shook her head. "I don't know. He left London after the funeral." "Or so he wishes us to believe," Poirot murmured. He turned to Hastings. "Mon ami, we must return to the Whispering Gallery at once. The diary confirms the secret lies there, and I suspect Charles Langley has not gone far. He seeks to claim or destroy what his father hid." As they emerged from the crypt, the cathedral's vast interior seemed to pulse with secrets. Poirot's mind raced, weaving together threads of treason, infidelity, and revenge. The diary was a key, but the lock remained in the gallery, where whispers carried truths across stone. With Hastings at his side and the diary tucked safely in his coat, Poirot felt the puzzle's edges aligning. The next revelation, he knew, would bring him closer to the killer. Chapter 10. Pursuit through the streets. The London night was a tapestry of rain and shadow, the cobblestones slick under Hercule Poirot's polished shoes as he emerged from St. Paul's Cathedral. The revelations of the crypt, the diary, Mrs. Langley's confession, and the mention of Charles Langley had set his mind ablaze. Captain Hastings, clutching his hat against the wind, followed close behind, his face a mix of excitement and apprehension. The diary, now safely tucked in Poirot's coat, had hinted at a secret hidden in the Whispering Gallery. But Charles Langley's absence from the scene suggested he was a step ahead, perhaps already moving to claim or destroy it. "Poirot, where are we going?" Hastings panted, struggling to match his friend's brisk pace. "Charles could be anywhere." Poirot's eyes gleamed under the brim of his hat. "No, mon ami, the guilty do not stray far from their purpose. Charles Langley is no fool. He knows the secret in the gallery is his only leverage. He will not flee London, but he will move swiftly. We must find him before he vanishes into the fog." As they reached the cathedral steps, a flicker of movement caught Poirot's eye. A tall figure in a dark overcoat hurrying across Paternoster Square. The man's gait, purposeful yet furtive, matched Charles Langley's lanky frame. Poirot pointed. "Là-bas! It is him!" Without waiting for Hastings, Poirot darted forward, his small figure weaving through the drizzle-soaked streets. The chase led them into Ludgate Hill, where the city's pulse thrummed despite the late hour. Gas lamps cast wavering pools of light, and the rain blurred the edges of the world, turning London into a labyrinth of shadows and echoes. Charles, sensing pursuit, quickened his pace, his coat flapping as he turned into a narrow alley. "Hastings, vite!" Poirot called, his voice sharp but controlled. Hastings, red-faced and panting, caught up as they plunged into the alley. The walls closed in, the air thick with the scent of damp brick and refuse. Somewhere ahead, Charles's footsteps splashed through puddles, his silhouette darting between crates and barrels. "Stop, Monsieur Langley!" Poirot shouted, his voice carrying an authority that belied his stature. "You cannot outrun the truth." Charles glanced back, his face pale in the dim light, then ducked into a side street. Poirot, undeterred, followed, his mind racing as fast as his feet. The diary had revealed Sir Reginald's wartime treason and personal betrayals, but Charles's role was still unclear. Was he the killer, seeking to bury his brother's secrets, or a pawn in a larger game of espionage? The answer, Poirot knew, lay in the gallery's secret, and Charles was the key. The chase spilled into Fleet Street, where late-night cabs and delivery carts rumbled past. Charles, desperate now, shoved through a knot of pedestrians, earning curses as he bolted toward a dimly lit courtyard. Poirot, with surprising agility, kept pace, his cane tapping rhythmically against the pavement. Hastings, struggling to keep up, marvelled at his friend's tenacity. "Dash it, Poirot! You're like a bloodhound!" "Focus, Hastings!" Poirot snapped, his eyes locked on Charles' fleeing form. "The mind, not the legs, will catch him." The courtyard was a dead end, hemmed in by high brick walls. Charles skidded to a halt, his breath ragged, his eyes wild as he turned to face his pursuers. In his hand gleamed a small, metallic object, a key, its intricate design catching the faint light. Poirot slowed, his gaze fixed on the key. "Monsieur Langley," he said, his voice calm but unyielding, "that key It unlocks the secret of the Whispering Gallery, does it not? Charles's jaw tightened. You know nothing, Poirot. This is bigger than you, bigger than all of us. Perhaps, Poirot replied, stepping closer. But murder, it is never so grand. You killed your brother, oui? To silence the truth of your family's shame. Charles laughed, a bitter sound. You think it's that simple? Reginald was a fool, meddling in things he didn't understand. The war never ended for some, Poirot. There are people who'd kill to keep those secrets buried. Before Poirot could respond, Charles lunged, shoving past Hastings and sprinting toward a narrow passage. Poirot, anticipating the move, grabbed Hastings's arm. The passage leads to Shoe Lane. We will cut him off. They doubled back, racing through the rain-slicked streets, the city a blur of lights and shadows. Poirot's mind churned, piecing together the fragments, the diary's revelations, the cipher, the key. Charles was no mere fugitive. He was part of a web of espionage, a legacy of wartime betrayal that reached into the present. As they rounded a corner, Charles's figure loomed ahead, trapped by a locked gate. He turned, cornered, his eyes darting for an escape. Poirot advanced, his voice steady. The key, Monsieur Langley. Give it to me, and we will uncover the truth together. Charles hesitated, then slumped, the fight draining from him. He tossed the key to the ground, where it landed with a dull clink. You'll regret this, Poirot, he muttered. The gallery's secret isn't just a scandal. It's a weapon. Poirot picked up the key, his expression unreadable. Then we shall disarm it, mon ami. As Hastings secured Charles, Poirot's thoughts turned to the Whispering Gallery, where the final pieces of the puzzle awaited. Chapter 11. Revelations in the Crypt. The crypt of St. Paul's Cathedral was a cold, echoing vault, its stone arches swallowing the feeble light of the lanterns carried by Hercule Poirot and Captain Hastings. The air was heavy with the scent of damp earth and ancient secrets, and the silence pressed against their ears like a living thing. Charles Langley, his hands now bound with Hastings's scarf, sat slumped against a pillar, his defiance eroded by exhaustion. The intricate key plucked from the rain-soaked courtyard rested in Poirot's gloved hand, its weight a promise of answers. Poirot, what now? Hastings asked, his voice low, as if afraid to disturb the crypt's solemnity. We've got Charles, but what does that key unlock? Poirot's eyes gleamed, reflecting the lantern's glow. Patience, mon ami. The key is but a tool. The true lock is the human heart, and its secrets. Monsieur Langley knows more than he admits. He turned to Charles, his tone gentle but unyielding. You spoke of a weapon, monsieur. What is hidden in the Whispering Gallery, and why did your brother die for it? Charles's gaze darted to the shadows, his face pale. You're meddling in things you can't understand, Poirot. Let it go. The truth will ruin more than my family. Poirot's moustache twitched. The truth, it ruins only those who fear it. Speak, or I shall deduce it myself. And I assure you, my deductions are most precise. Charles exhaled, his shoulders sagging. It's not just about the diary or the letters. My father during the war, he wasn't just selling secrets. He hid something in the cathedral, a list of names, double agents who operated in London. Reginald found it years ago and kept it secret, thinking he could use it for leverage. But someone else wanted it, someone powerful. Poirot's eyes narrowed, and this someone, they killed Sir Reginald to silence him? Charles nodded, his voice barely a whisper. I didn't kill him, Poirot. I swear it. I was trying to protect the family name, but I saw someone in the gallery that day. A shadow Moving too quickly. I thought they were after the list." Hastings frowned. "A shadow? Who, Charles? Stop speaking in riddles!" Poirot raised a hand, silencing his friend. "No, Hastings, let him speak. A shadow, you say, Monsieur Langley? Describe this figure." Charles swallowed hard. Tall, wearing a dark cloak. I couldn't see their face. They were near the gallery's edge when Reginald fell. I thought they pushed him. Poirot's mind raced, weaving the threads of the case. The diary's revelations of betrayal, the cipher pointing to the gallery, the key in his hand. He stepped toward a low stone bench, where an old iron grate was set into the wall, its surface etched with faint symbols. The key's design matched the grate's lock, a subtle but deliberate clue. "This," Poirot murmured, "is where the secret lies." He inserted the key, turning it with a soft click. The grate swung open, revealing a small cavity. Inside was a leather pouch, its edges worn but intact. Poirot opened it carefully, extracting a single sheet of paper, yellowed with age. Names written in precise script filled the page, along with dates and cryptic notations. "The list," Poirot said softly, "a catalogue of traitors hidden in the heart of the cathedral." Hastings peered over his shoulder. "Good Lord, Poirot, these names, some of them are still prominent. If this got out—" "Précisément," Poirot said. "This is why Sir Reginald died. Not for his father's sins, but for the power this list holds. Someone wished to keep it buried, or to wield it." Charles's voice broke the silence. "That's what I tried to tell you. The person who wanted it, they're still out there. I was supposed to deliver it tonight, but you caught me first." Poirot's gaze sharpened. "Deliver it to whom?" Before Charles could answer, a soft shuffle echoed from the crypt's entrance. Poirot spun, his lantern casting wild shadows. A figure stood in the doorway, cloaked in darkness, their face obscured. "Monsieur Poirot," a low voice said, laced with menace, "you've found more than you should." Hastings reached for his revolver, but Poirot's hand stayed him. "No, Hastings, this is no time for force. We face a mind, not a weapon." He stepped forward, his voice steady. "You are the shadow from the gallery, oui? The one who pushed Sir Reginald to his death. Step into the light and let us end this game." The figure hesitated, then moved closer. The lantern revealing a face Poirot had not expected. The verger, Mr. Grayson, his kindly demeanour replaced by a cold, calculating stare. "You're too clever, Poirot," he said, "but clever men don't always live long." Poirot's lips curved slightly. "And yet here I stand. The list, Monsieur Grayson. It is you who seeks it, non? A relic of your own past, perhaps?" Grayson's eyes flickered, betraying a crack in his composure. Poirot knew he had struck a nerve. The crypt, once a sanctuary, was now a stage for the final act, and the little Belgian detective was ready to unmask the killer. Chapter 12. The Gallery's Final Secret. The Whispering Gallery of St. Paul's Cathedral was a circle of stone and secrets, its curved walls amplifying the faintest sounds under the vast dome. Hercule Poirot stood at its centre, his small figure dwarfed by the grandeur, but commanding the attention of all present. The suspects, Mrs. Langley, Charles Langley, Mr. Ellis, and the verger, Mr. Grayson, stood along the gallery's edge, their faces a mix of dread and anticipation. Captain Hastings, stationed near the railing, kept a wary eye on Grayson, whose unmasking in the crypt had revealed him as more than a humble church servant. The list of wartime double agents, now tucked safely in Poirot's pocket, was the key to the murder of Sir Reginald Langley, and the air thrummed with the weight of impending revelation. "Mes amis," Poirot began, his voice clear and resonant, carried by the gallery's uncanny acoustics, We gather here, where whispers become truth, to unmask a killer. Sir Reginald Langley did not fall by accident. He was pushed, murdered for a secret he guarded, a secret hidden in these very walls. Mrs. Langley clutched her shawl, her eyes darting to Charles. You can't believe I'd kill my own husband. Poirot raised a hand. Patience, madame. The truth, it unfolds methodically, like the cells of my little grey cells. He paced slowly, his cane tapping the stone floor. The diary of Eleanor Langley revealed Sir Reginald's father as a traitor, hiding a list of double agents in this cathedral. Sir Reginald discovered it, and with it, a power he could not resist. But power, it attracts predators. He turned to Grayson, whose face was a mask of forced calm. Monsieur Grayson, you presented yourself as a humble verger, but you are no stranger to secrets. The list, it contains your name, does it not? A young man in the war, perhaps, who played both sides and survived to guard his past. Grayson's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. Poirot continued, his eyes gleaming. You knew Sir Reginald had found the list. He threatened to expose it, to ruin you. So you followed him to this gallery, where a whispered threat became a fatal push. That's preposterous, Grayson snapped. I was below when he fell. No, Poirot said sharply. You were seen, a shadow in a cloak, by Charles Langley. You moved swiftly, using your knowledge of the cathedral's passages. The key Charles carried, it was yours once, oui? You entrusted it to him, thinking he would retrieve the list for you, but his loyalty wavered. Charles shifted uneasily. I told you, Poirot, I didn't kill him. I was trying to protect the family. Protect or profit? Poirot asked. You knew the list's value, Monsieur Charles. You considered selling it perhaps to those who still hunt wartime ghosts, but you lacked the courage to act alone. Poirot turned to Mr. Ellis, the curate, whose nervous hands betrayed his fear. And you, Monsieur Ellis, you aided Mrs. Langley to retrieve the diary, believing it would shield the family? But you overheard whispers of the list, did you not? Your panic in the crypt betrayed you. Ellis stammered. I only wanted to help. I didn't know about any murder. Poirot's gaze softened, but only slightly. The heart may be sincere, but the mind, it can be deceived. He stepped closer to the railing, looking down at the cathedral floor far below. The gallery's secret is not just the list. It is the human weakness it exposed, greed, fear, betrayal. Sir Reginald died because he stood between these forces. He produced the list, holding it aloft. This paper names those who betrayed their country, but it also names a killer. Monsieur Grayson, you pushed Sir Reginald, knowing his death would be ruled an accident. You used the gallery's height and its whispers to conceal your crime, but the walls, they heard you. Grayson lunged forward, his face twisting. You have no proof, Poirot. That list means nothing without witnesses. Poirot smiled faintly. The gallery itself is my witness, and here, in this place of echoes, your own words betray you. He gestured to Hastings, who produced a small notebook. My friend Hastings. He recorded your confession in the crypt, your admission of knowing the list's hiding place. Combined with Charles's testimony, it is enough. Grayson's shoulders slumped, his fight extinguished. Mrs. Langley gasped, and Charles looked away, guilt etched on his face. Poirot's voice softened. The secret of the Whispering Gallery is no more. The truth, it has been spoken, and justice will follow. As Hastings signalled for the police, waiting below, Poirot gazed at the dome above. The whispers had guided him, but it was his relentless logic that had unravelled the killer's web. The gallery, once a place of mystery, was now a stage of resolution, its echoes silenced at last. Chapter 13. Echoes fade away. The morning sun filtered through the stained-glass windows of St. Paul's Cathedral, casting kaleidoscopic patterns across the stone floor. Hercule Poirot stood alone in the nave, his gloved hands clasped behind his back, his eyes fixed on the distant dome where the whispering gallery lay silent. The case of Sir Reginald Langley's murder was resolved. The killer, Mr. Grayson, the duplicitous verger, now in custody, his motives laid bare in the gallery's dramatic confrontation. The list of wartime double agents, a relic of betrayal, was safely in the hands of the authorities, its secrets no longer a threat. Yet Poirot lingered, his mind turning over the echoes of the case. Captain Hastings joined him, his footsteps echoing softly. "Well, Poirot, another triumph for the little grey cells," he said, attempting a cheerful tone. "Grayson's confessed fully now, admitted he pushed Sir Reginald to keep that list buried. Said it would have ruined him and others still in high places." Poirot nodded, his moustache twitching slightly. "Oui, mon ami. The list was a weapon, as Charles Langley warned, but it was not the list alone that killed Sir Reginald. It was fear of exposure, of shame, of the past refusing to stay silent." Hastings frowned, adjusting his hat. "I still can't believe Grayson fooled everyone. A verger, of all people, mixed up in espionage and murder. And Mrs. Langley and Charles, they knew more than they let on." "Précisément," Poirot said, his voice low. "The human heart, it whispers its secrets, but only to those who listen. Mrs. Langley sought to protect her family's name, Charles to profit from it, and Grayson to bury his own treachery. Each played their part in this tragedy, but only one took a life. They began walking toward the west entrance, the cathedral's vastness a quiet contrast to the turmoil of the past days." Poirot's thoughts drifted to the diary of Eleanor Langley, its pages heavy with a family's shame, and to the cipher in the gallery, a puzzle that had led him through London's rainy streets and into the crypt's shadows. The key, the list, the whispered message, "The truth lies below." All had converged to unmask Grayson, whose wartime betrayals had haunted him into the present. Outside, the London air was crisp, the fog of earlier days replaced by a rare clarity. Poirot paused on the cathedral steps, gazing at the city's skyline. "The Whispering Gallery, Hastings, it is a marvel, no? It carries whispers across stone, just as human nature carries secrets across time. We hide them, we guard them, but they always find a way to be heard." Hastings chuckled. "You're getting philosophical, old chap. But I suppose you're right. This case, it wasn't just about murder. It was about what people will do to keep their pasts hidden." Poirot's eyes twinkled. "And what I, Hercule Poirot, will do to bring them to light. The echoes of this case, they fade now, but they leave a lesson. The truth, it is patient. It waits for those who seek it." As they descended the steps, a young constable approached, tipping his hat. "Monsieur Poirot, the inspector sends his thanks. Says you've saved the yard a right mess with that list. They're rounding up the last of the names on it now." Poirot inclined his head. "Justice, it is served quietly, but it is served. Tell your inspector I require only a good cup of tisane as reward." The constable grinned and moved off, leaving Poirot and Hastings to stroll toward a waiting cab. The city buzzed around them, oblivious to the drama that had unfolded in its sacred heart. Poirot's mind, ever active, was already turning to the next puzzle. But for now, he allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. The gallery's final secret had been revealed, the killer unmasked, and the whispers silenced. Back to Baker Street, then? Hastings asked, climbing into the cab. Oui, Poirot replied, settling beside him. But first, a detour. There is a patisserie in Covent Garden that promises a tarte au citron of unparalleled perfection. Even the little grey cells deserve a reward, no? Hastings laughed, and the cab rolled into the London morning, carrying the little Belgian detective away from the echoes of St. Paul's, his work done, his thoughts already drifting to the next mystery waiting in the wings.